The white man used God's name as a cover for his evil intention to rob and rape and pillage the people of the earth who were seeking God. And this is why he painted God as a white man, so he could get you to bow down to the image of himself. He didn't teach you no religion. That's why in the church, Reverend, you don't have the power of Jesus Christ. You can only preach an empty word, but you don't have the juice to turn the people to God and to clean up their lives and give them power. You don't have that, Reverend. If you got it, you got to come get it from us. The intention of the heart is what really makes the word or action good or evil. For instance, if there's an elderly woman who appears to be struggling with her groceries, and I determine to help her across the street, that looks like a good act, doesn't it? On the surface, it looks good. But suppose my action was to get at her purse, which was in one of her bags. Well, you might see me walking the person across the street. You say, oh, that's wonderful. That young man is so kind to his elders. But you might not see the person lifting the woman's purse out of the bag, because the act of good was used as a cover to get across an evil intended action. We ask the question, what was the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's motive in raising Malcolm, in raising Louis Farrakhan, in raising a nation? What was Malcolm's motive in accepting the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and following his guidance and teachings? What was Elijah Muhammad's motive in silencing Malcolm? What was Malcolm's motive in breaking the silence? What was Elijah Muhammad's motive in setting Malcolm outside of the nation? And what was Malcolm's motive for leaving the nation? What was stated and what can we determine over time is the actual motivation? What motivated Spike Lee to make this epic film? What motivated Warner Brothers to put up the money? What motivated Warner Brothers to say they didn't have enough when it ran over the budget? And what motivated the move to Oprah Winfrey and Bill Cosby and Magic Johnson and other sports and entertainment figures to raise $5 million that the movie could be completed? Did Warner Brothers run out of money? Could they not have advanced the $5 million? Why did Mr. Lee have to go to Oprah and Magic and Bill Cosby? What was Cupsinet's motivation? The moment the movie was out, Cupsinet said, Louis Farrakhan, Malcolm's arch enemy. Is Louis Farrakhan Malcolm's arch enemy? If so, why did Kupsanet say that? Was Elijah Muhammad an immoral man? Was he an abuser of women? Why did Malcolm say that? Is Malcolm correct? Wait. Is Elijah correct? Is Malcolm incorrect? Is Elijah incorrect? To look in the hearts of people is really God's business. None of us can really say we know what is in the heart of another human being. However, when we look at words and watch actions, the words and the actions can tell us more of the heart of the individual. And if the words are magnificent and the actions are not congruent with the words, then the action tells us more about the heart than the beautiful words that one speaks. So, if my people, as Sister Ava Muhammad said, are destroyed for the lack of knowledge, and Solomon said, get knowledge, for it is the principal thing. But with all thy getting, get understanding. For it is only understanding that allows us to properly interpret facts, not cook facts to make facts form a pattern that would be pleasing to us, but to take facts without touching them, without altering them, but seeing into the facts to properly interpret those facts. And when I say properly interpreting a fact, all of us see facts and hear facts every day, but facts mean different things to different people. But it is the right interpretation of facts that allows us to do the proper thing with facts. Wrong interpretation of facts does not allow us to be rightly guided. Are we clear? If we take the Quran as truth, there are verses of the Quran that need and require interpretation. If the interpretation is correct, then the guidance flowing from the Word of God is correct. If our interpretation is faulty, then our actions in accord with our interpretation will be faulty. Are we in agreement?
Yes, sir.
Now, righteous people do not wish to be guilty of slander. It is not meet or right for any of us to slander Malcolm, to become so engrossed in emotional response to Malcolm's actions that we slander him. But again, on the other side of that coin, it is totally inappropriate for Malcolm to slander his teacher. Now, in the Holy Quran, and I must say, Sister Tainetta Muhammad, as I was on my way to the mosque, sitting in the car, I said, I want to base part of my lecture on this surah of the Quran, the same one that you spoke on but did not quote. You quoted the 111th, so now I shall quote the 104th. It shows you how when you're in tune, you know, God is the feeder. It says, in the name of God, the most gracious, the most merciful, woe to every scandal monger and backbiter. Stop. In the Maulana Muhammad Ali translation, he says, woe to every scandalmonger and defamer. Well, some of us don't have any fame to defame. But the Quran is reciting a woe to every kind of scandalmonger or backbiter or defamer. As I speak with you, how many of us have knowingly or unknowingly engaged in slander and backbiting? Allah says in the Quran that He will hurl these kind of persons into hell because He hates scandalmongers and backbiters. In the footnotes it says, 3 vices are here condemned in the strongest terms. 1, scandalmongering, talking or suggesting evil of men or women by word or innuendo or by behavior or mimicry or sarcasm or insult. 2, detracting from their character behind their backs, even if the things suggested are true. There are certain things about people that are really true. But what is your intention of using what you know of truth about somebody behind their backs to lower their character or defame them? I would like to just deal with those 2. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad did not care that Malcolm was a felon. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad did not care that Malcolm was a pimp, a dope user and seller and bank robber or robber, gambler, hustler, etc. Why didn't the Honorable Elijah Muhammad say, oh my God, a man like that should never be with me? Some of your organizations and churches today would never have accepted Malcolm as a felon, as they don't accept our young people, women or men, who have a criminal background. Our young men and women who have criminal backgrounds are not honored members of the NAACP, the Urban League, and they're not really honored members of their church because there's something in their backgrounds that is not harmonious with those who want upward mobility and don't want to be pulled down by association with criminals. But the same Jesus we preach about sat with publicans and sinners. And when the Pharisees berated him for so doing, he said, quote, "It is the sick who need a doctor." A sick man who comes to a doctor is not berated for being sick. Otherwise, the doctor has no reason for existence. The reason that you would want to take up medicine is because there are sick people who need help. So when a person comes to you sick, you don't say, "What are you doing sick? Don't you know that all sickness is sin? Get up out of here." You say, "What is the problem? How long have you been troubled with it?" Then as you search the history of that kind of symptom, you say, "Oh, I think I know what that is. Let me prescribe something for you that you may be rid of your illness." The Honorable Elijah Muhammad knew what Master Farad Muhammad, his teacher, did for him. One of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's sons said that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was in terrible condition before he met Master Farad Muhammad. He used to drink, and he was so drunk, one day he was stretched across the railroad track. And somebody had to come and get him, lest the train chop him in many pieces. Well, I don't know how many of you have been drunk like that, but you don't throw off on somebody who's a drunkard when you know you've been one too. You don't throw off on somebody who's a drug addict when you used to be that. You have compassion for the drug addict if God heals you from it, don't you? Because you know the hell that every drug addict is going through by the hell that you went through. Is that right? If you have ever been in prison, female or male, you know the hell of prison life. So if you are able to come out of prison and make a change in your life for the better, don't you have some kind of compassion for a brother that's doing hard time or a sister that's doing hard time? So God don't need to send no angel after you, because an angel wouldn't know what to do with you. God has to raise one from the midst of you that knows your condition and your suffering, that would have the compassion necessary to work with your condition and mine until he makes us well. So what was the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's motive in calling Malcolm out of darkness, in calling Farrakhan out of darkness, and calling you out of darkness? Even those of you who don't claim to be Muslims, what did you learn from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and what was his motive for teaching? Was it to make money so he could live in a mansion on Woodlawn? Was it to ride in nice cars? What was his motive? His motive is all wrapped up in his mission. It is motive that gives the fire to what you do. And the more proper the motive, the more sustained the action. You better listen. Somebody, I don't want to use that example. No. Let me put it like this. I'll walk with you a little ways if I really say I want to help you. But to suffer with you till you make a change in your conduct and in your life may take years. Nobody does that but a mother for her errant child, or a man of God who is entrusted with the responsibility of the reform and transformation of the life of a people. Elijah Muhammad's life was transformed, and he was about the business of transforming human life. Malcolm was one of those lives. What a joy to correct a pimp. What a joy to correct a hustler, a thief, and a robber. Look at what was brought out of Malcolm. Malcolm was raw genius, buried in prison. And the prisons are filled today with the genius of black men and women who need what Malcolm received. As I mentioned last Sunday, Malcolm didn't just read a dictionary or read Plato and Aristotle and black history and become a teacher that transforms human life. The dictionary has never transformed one individual. Neither has Plato, Socrates, Aristotle, or any of those fellas. And if the Bible alone transforms human life, why isn't your life transformed? If you didn't read it, somebody been reading it to you, and you go to church, a Negro or a whatnot, and you come out the same Negro or whatnot that you went in. So your life is not transformed by the reading of a book. You can go to the mosque and sit down and somebody can read ayats or verses of the Quran. That don't transform human life. Otherwise, the whole Islamic world would be transformed by the reading of the Quran. It's not the reading. It's not the preaching. It's the Spirit of God in the revealing of the inner meaning of his words that sink deep into the hearts of the listener and gives the listener the will to start the process of evolutionary change from dust to the manifestation of divine. And I don't care what mosque or church you attend. If that imam or sheikh or mullah, if that bishop, that priest does not have the spirit and the right understanding of the word of God, they'll never bring about a transformation in human life. Malcolm's life was transformed. And all of you who claim to love Malcolm, you don't love him enough to look deep into what transformed his life while you claim him from your lips. You live and act like the that Malcolm condemned. Come on and talk to me. While you claim Malcolm with your lips, you don't have any power with all that you know to transform the lives of suffering black people. You can give them knowledge, but you can't make them make a change in their lives because you don't have the power. It is not with you. It is not in the college. It is not in the university. It's not in Mecca or Medina or in Al-Azhar in Egypt. Malcolm had power to transform human life. When I heard Malcolm preach, I heard a man versed in the Bible, versed in the Quran, versed in the prophecies, versed in history, and he brought everything that he had read in prison and other places to bear on the Word of God. But the Word of God was primary, not secondary. You revolutionists, you nationalists, the thing that you hate is religion. Yet that is the thing that gave you Malcolm X from the very beginning. Do you deny that? Then how can you love the apple and hate the tree that produced the apple? Are you a liar? Are you ignorant? Or are you a damn hypocrite? What are you? Some of you have gotten so hip in your revolutionary nationalistic ideology, you don't want no God in your life. But Malcolm was moved by God. It was God that Malcolm represented. It was God that empowered Malcolm. It was God that gave Malcolm the mind to stand up against the government of America and all that the government represents. It was not any dictionary or ideology. It was God, raw, pure, and simple. I was with Malcolm one day with the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And the people wanted to know what was the secret of the Nation of Islam's success in transforming drug addicts and making them clean. The sociologists wanted to learn. I was with Malcolm at Harvard University and at Boston University when Dr. C. Eric Lincoln invited him to address some of the leading social scientists in America. They wanted to study this phenomenon called the Nation of Islam. What is Muhammad using? How does he do this? And Elijah Muhammad told Malcolm, said, when they ask you, you tell them, it is our belief in Allah. But we don't want that. And that's why you're still the same old Negro and colored person, and you'll always be that when you reject God in your life. Well, I don't want the God that the white man taught us about. The white man ain't never taught you about God. The white man used God's name as a cover for his evil intention to rob and rape and pillage the people of the earth who were seeking God. And this is why he painted God as a white man, so he could get you to bow down to the image of himself. He didn't teach you no religion. That's why in the church, Reverend, you don't have the power of Jesus Christ. You can only preach an empty word, but you don't have the juice to turn the people to God and to clean up their lives and give them power. You don't have that, Reverend. If you got it, you got to come get it from us. I had a dear reverend visit me. He said 1,000 members of the so-called gangs had visited Push. But when it came time for them to come, they wanted to come, and they did come. But he admitted he really are at a little loss to know what to do for them, because they don't have the power or the knowledge to transform human life. I'm not knocking us, Reverend. I'm not putting us down, Reverend. Please don't misunderstand me. But there is no white man's school of theology that intended from the beginning to bring you to God. If you got to God, you got him on your own. They didn't intend to bring you there. If you found God, it was because you were looking for him. But it's not because they taught you. They gave you empty philosophy, moral jargon, doctrine, rituals, and then sent you out to do what? To entertain people? To find new ways to bring music to the church so that the people can jump and shout and whatnot? No, you talk to me, because that's not what church is for. Jesus didn't have no timpani five walking with him. He didn't have no guitar, no banjo, no drum, no singing group with Jesus, getting on down while the master was working out. Jesus didn't have none of that. Jesus had a pure word with power in it from God. Prophet Muhammad was a simple man, but the revelation of this Quran with the spirit of Muhammad enabled him to transform human life. Malcolm had that power. I loved him so much. I never had a father. I never knew my father. My poor mother tried to rear me as best she could. She was such a strong black woman with no man in the house. But when I met the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, I met a man. Somebody that I, as a young man, could pattern my life after. And right after I met the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, I met Malcolm, and I heard Malcolm preach. And I never heard a man talk like that in my life. Such boldness, such strength. I can imagine how some of your minds are blown when you hear me so boldly. You don't get boldness on your own. Malcolm didn't come to Elijah Muhammad bold. He got bold when he met a bold man. I got bold when I met a bold black man. I always wanted to be brave and strong, but I was like that cowardly lion in the woods. I needed somebody to give me a dose of courage. So when I met the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and Malcolm, I was meowing. Meow. I was trying to roar, you know what I mean, but it just wouldn't come out. Like some of you. You really want to be a man. You really want to stand up. You really want to help your people, but you don't know how. You've been in church, but you don't know how. You got a PhD, but you don't know how. You've been in the lodge, but you don't know how. You've been in secret fraternities, but you don't know how. It's all right not to know, but it's not all right not to know, and not to know that you don't know, and not to seek the knowledge after you know you don't know. I loved Malcolm because to me the greatest man in my life was the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And the motive that Elijah Muhammad used was his mission from God to resurrect us from mental, moral, spiritual, social, economic, and political death. That was the motive. But he had another motive sitting up under that motive. Like there's a root and then there's a tap root. You may think you're at the root, but there's another root below that root. Like there's a meaning under the meaning, under the meaning, under the meaning. And if you keep going far enough under the meaning, you'll find God. But surface dwellers will never find God. Surface dwellers will only find that which is on the surface. All riches are buried. And anybody that wants to become rich and doesn't want to dig deep into the earth for its treasures, or deep into the ocean for its treasures, or deep into the consciousness of self, or deep into the reservoir of knowledge, will never get wealthy with wisdom. If you just want to be a surface dweller, satisfied with little, then there's a little on the surface for everybody. But if you want to be like God, you got to keep digging for more and more knowledge. Malcolm had an insatiable desire to learn. He was a voracious reader. Everything of value he could get his hands on, he read. But he didn't just read to quote. He read with understanding because he was given a criterion by which he could judge the knowledge that he received. Most of you are like intellectual pigs. I'm going to say that again. Most of you are like intellectual hogs. See, a hog has no digestive system. The cow will chew it up here. It has 3 digestive systems. It's getting it together. And every time it's digesting, it's separating this from that only the best will get down to become a part of the body, and the rest will be cast out as waste. But when you're a pig, everything you eat becomes a part of you, so that you become a big barrel of educational swill. So this little piggy went to market, and this little piggy stayed home. But wherever those pigs were, they did not know how to differentiate truth from falsehood, and the value of real knowledge from theory. And so white folk laid on us a whole bunch of mess, and he called it education and knowledge and book learning. And we, like the pig, kept our head down, slurped it all up. And then when it came time to produce, we couldn't produce nothing. White folks know that what they've given us as knowledge is a joke. But the wise among us, who have buttressed and complemented what they give with self-knowledge, are able to look into everything that they teach and separate the wheat from the chaff, and take the wheat into the storehouse of knowledge and act on the principles thereof. Elijah Muhammad's sub-motive was to make helpers, to help him in the awesome task that God had laid on his shoulders, the task of raising up a dead nation. Elijah Muhammad was not a selfish man. He was not a man motivated by greed. He wanted people to help him get to you with the word. And everybody that came to him, he would search them to see if they would make a good laborer. And even if they were a plumber and just knew how to sweat a pipe, he would show them how to sweat black people together. Can you do that? When Malcolm went to Philadelphia, Malcolm got a job as a painter just to make a little money. And he wrote the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and told the Honorable Elijah Muhammad he had gotten a job as a painter. And the Honorable Elijah Muhammad wrote him a letter saying, do you want to paint the walls of men? Or do you want to paint the hearts of men with the truth? In other words, just like Jesus, he found Peter fishing. He said, come on, get up out of there. I'm going to make you a fisher of men. Why are you going to make me a fisher of men, Jesus? Because I got a mission. And my mission is to retrieve men out of the sea of sin. Will you help me? So Peter came, James came, John came, Mark came, Thomas came. But he didn't find them doing the thing he was doing. Wasn't nobody on that gig. Nobody had that job. So now you're going to make a laborer? Somebody to teach black people? Yes, that's what I really want. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, everybody that came, like the words of Jesus, before me was a thief and a robber. He praised Marcus Garvey and he praised Noble Drew Ali as forerunners. And he honored their work and told all of his followers that it was a good work and a noble work. He didn't like the preachers because the preachers were on the payroll of the slave master. He didn't like the preachers because the preachers were more interested in hooping than in teaching. He didn't like the tune of a preacher. He didn't like it if a man started breaking. I went there that morning. Were you there? He didn't like that. He didn't want none of his ministers to sound like that. He hated it. He said, teach the people. Preach to the people. Don't moan. Listen to this. When he was teaching one day, he came home from the temple. Master Farad Muhammad was there. And so Master Farad asked the others, how did he do? And they were saying he did well. He really preached. There wasn't a dry eye in the temple. Master Farad got a very stern look on his face. And he told him, brother, don't you make my people cry. I came to wipe away their tears. Even if you're teaching good, don't make the people cry. So that's why when we teach, we come before the people with a happy spirit. I teach always with a smile. Because I got good news for you. Your day of suffering is just about over. If you're going to cry here, you're going to cry for joy. When you're trying to make a laborer, a worker, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad did not want proud people. He wanted us to be humble. And you know how some of us were and are. We got these big egos with nothing in our heads. We are very arrogant. We can't wait to get an authority over somebody so we can show off, how powerful we are. Jesus had all that trouble with his crazy disciples. And Elijah Muhammad had all that trouble with us. He was like a man asked to perform a delicate operation with a screwdriver. And he did the best he could. And Malcolm was the best that had come to Elijah Muhammad to represent this teaching. Of all Elijah Muhammad's ministers, in my judgment, Malcolm was top shelf. He always kept the Honorable Elijah Muhammad out front. Wherever he spoke, he said, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught me this. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught me that. In fact, when he came to the nation, they were calling Elijah Muhammad Mr. Muhammad. Isn't that right? But when Malcolm got here, they started calling him the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Malcolm introduced that. He wanted to see the leader in the dignified position that a man of his quality should be in. Malcolm knew what he was doing. He honored and respected the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's family. He loved all Elijah Muhammad's children, and he was treated by Elijah Muhammad as one of his own sons. Elijah Muhammad loved that man, and that man loved Elijah Muhammad. I never saw a man more fierce in defending Elijah Muhammad than Malcolm X. I learned basic things from Malcolm. He was a wonderful teacher. He was such a good example. I never heard Malcolm cuss. Every now and then on the rostrum he would say hell or damn, but I never heard anything else. I never saw Malcolm smoke, drink, or even hint that he needed one. I never saw Malcolm eat in between meals. The teaching of Elijah Muhammad was one meal a day. And in the 10 years that I knew Malcolm, I never saw Malcolm eat in between meals. Malcolm was a praying man. When I would stay in his home, he would get me up at 4:30 so we could make Salatul Fajr. Malcolm was devout, but Malcolm was revolutionary. And he had a character defect, as we all do. But I heard the Honorable Elijah Muhammad say that his strength was his greatest weakness. How can a man's strength be his weakness? I've seen men come in the nation, and when they hear the law taught by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, they have the strength to live it. And they became captains, teachers of the law. But they were so strong in the law till they couldn't countenance the weakness of their brothers and sisters in their failure to live up to the law. So their strength became their weakness because they weren't tolerant enough of the shortcomings of others to raise them up to a level of strength. Some of us are like that. Have you ever noticed some of us who can give exercises and do jumping jacks. 3, 4, 5, 600, 700, 800, 900, 1,000. We get in front of a class. Come on, we're going to do jumping jacks. And we're going to jump jack till he falls out. Just to show I got the endurance. I'm greater than you. See, that's sickness. That's imposing your ego and your vanity on your class. Elijah Muhammad, a marvelous teacher. He taught us humility. And one day he said to me, because I used to boast a lot, I didn't even realize how arrogant I was. And sometimes, the eye beholds everything else except itself. And so, you're looking out, but you're not looking in. And I found myself to be arrogant, but I didn't know this. And the messenger would listen to my tapes. And one day I sat at his table and he said, brother, you can tell the righteous. They walk the earth in humbleness. Then he pointed to the Holy Quran. He says, Allah loves not any self-conceited boaster, for their boasting is in his ears like the braying of an ass. And the braying of an ass is the most hateful sound in the ears of Allah. Then he said to me, brother, no matter how heavy you are, you can't step through the earth. Now some of you in here pretty heavy. Some of you weigh over 300 pounds. And next to some of these thin ones, you may feel like a giant. But go stand up next to a mountain and see how big you are. So he says, since you can't step through the earth or equal yourself up to the mountains, why not take your place as one of Allah's creatures and be humble? These are the lessons that he taught me. He taught Malcolm. He taught Brother Abdullah. He taught us all, didn't he, brother? And when we messed up, didn't the Honorable Elijah Muhammad have a way of teaching us and spanking us and punishing us that he made us better? You belong to organizations. These organizations ain't trying to make you better. You'll be the head honcho. You. What is your reason for being the head honcho? You shoot straight. Whatever that means. Ain't nobody trying to make you a better person, challenging you when you mess up. But Elijah Muhammad challenged us. Whenever he felt that we vipped when we should have vopped or deviated, he would stop us and upbraid us and correct us and reprove us and admonish us. And he whipped Malcolm many days to make Malcolm a better man. You weren't there. What do you know about it? Malcolm you fell in love with was made by somebody. And the Farrakhan that you're falling in love with is made by somebody much bigger than he is. You weren't there when the Honorable Elijah Muhammad chastised us. You don't know anything about that man's ability to chastise. His son is in the audience. His son will tell you, nobody came to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad that didn't get a whipping. I'm going to say it again. Nobody came to Elijah Muhammad that didn't get a whipping. Am I telling the truth? Did we get whippings? We did. Sometimes we didn't think we deserved it. And he would beat us on general principle, just to see if we had the humility to take a beating when you think you're right. You didn't hear me? I'm telling you what he did to me. I'm not before you as the kind of man that I'm becoming in no vacuum. My mother didn't teach me this. Elijah Muhammad put me on the radio to make a broadcast. He said, brother, I'm going to try you at this broadcast for 4 weeks. And he sent me a letter and he told me what he wanted me to preach. He said, and I will let you know after the 4 weeks if I want you on any longer. After the 4 weeks, I came back, smiling. He said, that was pretty good, brother. You can go on for another 2 weeks. This time you say what you have in your mind. After the other 2 weeks, which made 6 weeks, he said, well, brother, I'll give you 6 more weeks. And he listened. Every time I would make a tape, I would have to send it to him first. He would clear it, then he would send it throughout the country. You know how it is when you get a lollipop that somebody gave you that's theirs, and you start sucking on it till you think it's yours? And then they ask you to give it back, and you get an attitude. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad, listen to this carefully. He said, well, brother, you can go on now for 6 years. And all the while I was making the broadcast, I would write each word down and measure each word. It would sometimes take me a week just to make a half-hour broadcast because I strove for perfection. That's the discipline that my mother gave me in trying to make me a musician. I never performed a bad performance, never in my life. I worked hard at my craft so that I could always give my best. My teacher told me at the end of 3 years, he said, brother, don't write your speeches out. Just go and stand up. I said, don't make any notes. He said, no, brother, just go stand up and let Allah speak through you. And I did it for 4 years. And then I did it everywhere I went. I never would make notes. And I can wake up in the morning in the dead of the night, sleep, and preach. And call scriptures from everywhere without looking at a note. Because I studied 8, 9, 10 hours a day. And I studied my teacher. One time in the broadcast, he said, brother, I'll be coming back to the radio next week. Let the people know. Now I've been sucking on that lollipop a long time, brother. Elijah Muhammad said, I want it back now. You've been saying I was coming back. Now you can tell them I'm back. I made a tape. Hearken unto the voice of God. Because see, one thing, you can't fool a man that's that wise. He listened to your words, how you form them. He listened to the inflection of your voice and the spirit of you. And he can tell whether you want him to come back or whether you feel bad that he would take his own broadcast back. Like I'm telling you right now, I'm standing in his place. This ain't my place. So I can't get too used to his seat. He may claim it. I'm living in his house, not mine. I may get a knock on the door one day. Do you live here? So a man, in words, should never get comfortable with borrowed goods. And everything you got belongs to somebody else. So why act like it's yours? Always act like what you got is from God. This is God's work. Now let's get down to business. What was Malcolm's motive? Let me tell you the arrangement that Malcolm and the Honorable Elijah Muhammad had, which maybe you may know about or may not know. If the Honorable Elijah Muhammad told Malcolm, I'm going to put you out front and make you known that you will make me known. What kind of deal is that? In the days of Moses, Jehovah was not known. Jehovah put Moses and Aaron out there so that they could become known, so that they could make Jehovah known. So Elijah Muhammad put Malcolm out front. Was Malcolm out front? It wasn't that we didn't have nobody else in the nation that could talk like Malcolm. Stand up, Brother Abdullah. Step out here. This brother was formerly known as John Shabazz from Los Angeles, California. He rivaled Malcolm in eloquence, in brilliance, and in his ability to captivate audiences. He had the fastest growing mosque in the Nation of Islam. We had ministers all over the country taught by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Some of them may not have been as eloquent as Malcolm, but he had many that were just as. I just wanted to say that Elijah Muhammad didn't just produce one Malcolm. He produced a whole cadre. And everyone that he taught was a powerhouse in his own right, in his own city. Malcolm was just the out front man. So whenever we went to Harvard or Yale or Howard and we all were around Malcolm, none of us would speak. Malcolm spoke for us. We were quiet. The press would say, well, what do you think? We said, speak to the spokesman. We had that kind of discipline. So when they couldn't get a word out of us, they got it from Malcolm, so they elevated Malcolm. That was the plan. Elevate Malcolm, the articulate spokesman of the wisdom of Elijah Muhammad. And Malcolm was supposed to become a big man and introduce the world to the man that taught him and made him. It was a good arrangement. But what was the government doing all this time? Do you think the government liked the Nation of Islam? Do you think the government liked Malcolm? When Malcolm stood up representing the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, that was an unbeatable duo. Did you see how the enemy writes the FBI files, that they worked night and day to divide Malcolm from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad? What tactics did they use? Part of the tactics was to keep Malcolm in the press as the leader, to incite jealousy among those of us who followed Elijah Muhammad and knew that Malcolm was not the leader. We never followed Malcolm. We were followers of Malcolm to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. But the press, Malcolm X and his Muslims, they kept pumping Malcolm up as the leader. And then Malcolm had to almost degrade himself to keep from being looked at as the leader. So Malcolm would say, I'm like Charlie McCarthy. Some of you young people don't know who Charlie McCarthy is, but the older ones know that Charlie McCarthy was a wooden dummy. And Edgar Bergen was the ventriloquist that manipulated Charlie McCarthy. So Malcolm would go in front of the public and really degrade himself by saying, I'm like Charlie McCarthy and Elijah Muhammad is like Edgar Bergen, meaning he is the one pulling my strings. And he was not lying. Every major speech that Malcolm made, he would go to the phone and call the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and the Honorable Elijah Muhammad would give him the outline. Malcolm would fill it in, and the press would marvel, and you would marvel at the wisdom of that man. But he was a microphone speaking the wisdom of a man speaking through him. You were benefiting from Malcolm, but you were benefiting from Elijah Muhammad through Malcolm. You don't like that, do you? I'm sorry, man. I can't tell you no lie. Because that's all you getting from me is a benefit from Elijah Muhammad through me. I'm not the author of this. But you all love to worship the students and crush the master. Something about Elijah Muhammad that you just don't seem to like. He was a strange man, uncompromising, unbending. They called him a strict disciplinarian, and he was that. He didn't like foolishness, and we couldn't carry on no foolishness around him. Wonderful teacher.
Please, if today is your first time coming to this channel, then don't forget to subscribe to this channel and turn on the notification button so that anytime I upload any great content, you will be notified. I'm always your guy, De-Graft Amoako. Thanks for watching.